For the third time in 4 years, Richmond will be playing in yet another grand final, and this time they will play against Geelong, who made their last grand final appearance in 2011, and it was 2011 when we last had an all-Victorian affair for the Granny. The grand final will historically be like no other grand final, as this is the first grand final ever to be played outside of Victoria, and as we all know, it will be played at the Gabba, thanks to COVID screwing things up for the state of Victoria. It will additionally be the first ever grand final played at night time at 6:30pm local time, but 7:30pm in Australian Eastern Daylight Time. It will be the latest time a grand final will ever be played, with the date of October 24 booked in for the game, surpassing the date of the 1923 grand final of the 20th of October, where Essendon beat Fitzroy by 17 points. It has been 53 years as well since the two sides have played one another in a grand final, and it was Richmond who were victorious last time out, with a 9-point win over Geelong in a high-scoring game. But the record between the two sides in grand finals is one apiece, with Geelong taking the honours the first time all the way back in 1931, where club legends like Jack Dyer and Edward Greaves were in their heydays. But the last time these teams met overall was not too long ago on September 11, where Richmond walked away comfortable winners at Metricon Stadium by 26 points, thanks to a vintage performance from Jack Riewoldt kicking 4 goals. Interestingly enough, Geelong had about 30 more touches overall than Richmond, which does prove that they like to slowly build up the play, but it didn't really prove effective against Richmond, as they probably should have won by more considering that the Tigers kicked 7 goals and 15 behinds, showing a lot of inaccuracy, particularly for Dustin Martin, who had 3 behinds, and I don't expect this to happen again, especially considering that Dusty is a final specialist too. A positive about Geelong in this game, however, was that they convincingly won the centre clearances count 10-2. It should be noted that both teams amazingly lost in their respected qualifying finals games and then redeemed themselves, going on to win back-to-back games to see themselves reach the grand final. Richmond got to where they are now with a third place finish on the ladder with 12 wins and a draw. They might have lost to the Lions in the qualifying final, but wins in both the semi and preliminary final against both St Kilda and Port Adelaide have seen the Tigers make the grand final stage in what is becoming the norm in AFL. Quite remarkable since they had such a disastrous 35 odd years before 2017. I think when you look at this Tigers team, it is very obvious that they want to keep the ball alive and avoid stoppages as much as possible, especially when the ball is in their forward 50. They play a very quick and hard running style, which makes for an exciting brand of footy, which is very different to how Geelong want to play. They also love to press relentlessly in the forward 50, denying the opposition a chance to make a transition. Geelong got to this stage by finishing 4th overall, and just like Richmond, they won 12 games, and also lost their qualifying final game against Port Adelaide, but back-to-back convincing victories against Collingwood and Brisbane have meant that Geelong will take part in the 19th grand final in VFL AFL history. Geelong for me will have to really try and slow the game down as much as possible, but when they do find an opportunity to attack, they have to go about this very quickly, and with Richmond likely wanting to press into Geelong's own inside 50, this can make it a really tough task to do so. Although they won the clearances easily against the Tigers last time out, they weren't really effective, and it just led to an efficiency inside 50 percentage of just 30%. And they will not only need to attempt to neaten up their clearances from the centre bounce, they'll need to find a way to negate a very organised Richmond defence. Now talking about key players and matchups, and I think Richmond will give a lot of attention onto Patrick Dangerfield. So for me, I have Cameron Guthrie as one of the key players, given that he's had a career best season and will simply need to be at this level again on Saturday. Joel Selwood will have to make use of his extensive finals experience and set an example for the Cats in every contest if they are to stand any chance of causing an upset. Lastly but not least, Gary Ablett is an absolute legend of the game and still seems to be playing at a very high level, kicking 3 goals against the Lions and rightfully being named player of the game. If Ablett can get his hands on the ball frequently in the forward half of the ground, then expect him to accumulate a lot of score involvements just like he did this past Saturday. As for Richmond key players, aside from the obvious choice of Dusty, Batcher Hooley has been a bit of a grand final specialist in recent times too. And Rich Hooley, now being fully fit after leaving the AFL bubble in Queensland a few months back, will surely have another memorable game from halfback. And I think Dion Prestia is a midfielder who goes under the radar a little bit, but his gut running and ability to cover the whole field seamlessly is one of Richmond's key assets, and it is a major reason why Richmond are so successful in pressuring opposing players into making costly mistakes. Jack Graham for me is underrated, so I thought I'd give him a mention too. A capable inside mid who's oh so brilliant at laying tackles on. He may not gather a lot of the ball, but he's really become a real team player for Richmond, and I actually think he's a lot more important for Richmond than what people believe to be the case. Now to the key matchups, and while I could probably talk about Dustin Martin versus Patrick Dangerfield for being one of the matchups, they're not directly playing on one another, so I'm not going to cover this as much. So I believe a key matchup for the final will be Tom Lynch and Jack Riewoldt against probably Jake Collar-Jasny and Harry Taylor, with maybe Lockie Henderson asked to help out on occasion. The Richmond Bigs kicked 5 of the team's 7 goals last time out these two teams played one another, and this simply cannot happen again if you want to give yourself a chance. While another key matchup will be Rhys Stanley versus Toby Nankervis. Nankervis probably had one of his best games in his career a few days ago, and even though he lost in the hitouts, he applied 10 tackles and was supreme in taking intercept marks and genuinely breaking up the play of the Port Power. While Stanley does average more hitouts than Nankervis during this season, it isn't by a lot, to be honest, it's only by a couple, and Stanley really needs to be effective when he does win the hitouts, with Blitzovs also needing to do the same when he's called upon for ruck duties. The third other key matchup has to be between Coleman medalist Tom Hawkins and the altering pair of Noah Bolter and Dylan Grimes. Grimes and co kept Hawkins to a single goal the last time out, and the entire Geelong team to 4 goals 5 weeks ago, and will need to do the same again in order to limit the impact of Hawkins and in general the Geelong small forwards, since Geelong are the best team in the league when it comes to scoring. Even though Richmond are the best defensive team in the league, if they give Hawkins even a sniff, he could go off in the final and make things difficult for the Richmond defense, and it could even open things up for the small forwards like Gary Rowan to become more devastating as well. The Boogers have Richmond as heavy favourites, and rightly so. They have a lot of experience at the grand stage now, and will be very hard for punters to go past Richmond, but I guess you just never completely know in the day, and maybe Geelong could cause an all-time boil over. But for my prediction, Richmond, as I've mentioned already, are rightly the favourite, having had the experience of playing in 2 grand finals in the last 3 years, and being victorious in both of them as well. And to be honest, it's just going to be too hard to go past Richmond for another grand final win, and I think they'll go on to claim their 13th premiership. As for the Norm Smith medal, and I think most people would probably be picking Dustin Martin to win a 3rd Norm Smith medal, but I will instead pick Batcher Hooley to take the Norm Smith. For me, he has been robbed in the past of this medal, and I will back him in to have another spectacular performance in the grand final. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the preview, subscribe to the channel for more content, and let me know your predictions in the comments.